3 from this side.
We have to balance the ethnic composition, the gender composition, things like that.
We should forget about the ethnic composition, but just the gender composition.
Okay.
So let me start from the female. Ladies first.
Good afternoon. My name is Tamika. I go from Maryland. My question, I just want to know, where do we donate? Is there a website or a link or an email address?
So those are kind of questions we like getting. Where do we donate? There are 2 major ways that you can donate. One is we have a GoFundMe platform. It's GoFundMe.org/Sowore 2019. So we'll be able to get that. We'll actually get that to you. The other way you can donate is we have a bank account. We have one in the US. We have several in Nigeria. So you can donate directly through those bank accounts. So please, Ms. Tom, please, if we can make sure that we provide information about the donation options to anybody. So anybody that wants to know how we can donate, that's the Deputy Financial Secretary of the party, of AAC. She's also one of the lead, she's the fundraising, she's responsible for fundraising in the US as well. So please seek her out and she'll be able to give you all that information.
Take it back.
Action. Does that answer your question? Thank you very much. You have a question, sir? Do I have any hand up from this side of the aisle? Anybody with a question, comment? No? Okay, I'll move down here. Please introduce yourself and be brief with your question. AAC. AAC.
Take it back.
AAC.
Take it back.
Take it back.
Action.
My name is Sonny Dedemo. I'm from ISB of Maryland. You said something about the ideology that rules, a movement or parties. And I want to know what's the ideology for
Thank you very much. He wants to know the particular ideology. Do you mean, are we Democratic leaning or Republican leaning or something like that?
We do not believe in labels. But what I'll do is I will describe to you what the party believes. So, and what the movement believes as well as what the party believes. So what we fundamentally believe, so we have a 10-point program. I don't know if you're familiar with Spicer? With Spicer Heat, okay? So I don't know if you're familiar with Spicer Heat, but we have a 10-point agenda. So our fundamental belief, first of all in the movement, is that Nigeria is an incredibly blessed nation. That we have incredible people that are able to do remarkable things. When you see progress in Nigeria, it is in spite of government and not because of government. And our fundamental belief is that we should have a nation where every single individual is able to reach their fullest potential without drawback, regardless of where they come from, regardless of what name they bear, regardless of which God they call. Our other view is that we are Africans, and that within our culture is a respect, a fundamental respect for humanity, and a fundamental notion that every person is his brother or sister's keeper. I don't know of any African language that has the word cousin. There are no cousins, there are no nephews. It is my mother's brother, my sister's son. So that's our nature, that's our culture. One of the fundamental beliefs we have as well within the movement and the party is that that love and that care, that cultural aspect of our beginnings as Africans, that governments, whatever we call them, that we must retain that. Whether you call that democratic welfareism, whether you call it social, you can call it whatever you want to. But we believe that when people are not able to take care of themselves, it is the duty of a government to take care of them. We believe it is the duty of any government to ensure that all the people are educated. Because if you don't do that, then it means that the accident of one's birth will determine the outcomes of their lives. I went to public schools in Nigeria, and I'm sure many of us here did. Today, you cannot send your child near the perimeter of a public school in Nigeria. I went to public schools, public primary school, public secondary school, public university. You can't dare do that today in Nigeria. We should not have that type of country. We should not have a country where security depends whether or not you feel secure in terms of your life and your property is directly proportional to the wealth that you have. No, we don't believe Nigeria should be that kind of country. So our ideology essentially is one that affirms three things. One, that each individual should be able to get to the pinnacle of what they can achieve based on their innate potential. Two, that where you come from, who you are, who you know, should not be a determinant of how far you get. And number three, that government has a role in moving people's lives forward. So when we do Spicer Heat, what you'll see in Spicer, so what Spicer Heat stands for, the S is for security. There is no bigger problem today in Nigeria than the security issue. Whether it's Boko Haram, whether it's herdsmen, it doesn't matter what it is. Security is a fundamental problem. The second P is power. Without power, there can be no progress. None. And it is baffling to me, and I'm sure baffling to everybody here. If you go to the back of this hotel, I haven't been there, but I can assure you that somewhere in this hotel is a 2 megawatt plant that they fire up once every year. Just in case power goes out. 2 megawatts. Why do I think it's 2 megawatts? Based on the number of rooms in this hotel, based on the appliances that are here, I would imagine that thing has to be between 1 to 2 megawatts. Guess what? In Nigeria, we only have 4,000 megawatts. In total. In total. 4,000 megawatts. So without power, we're going nowhere. Without power, we can't even compete with anyone. For most commodities, and people keep asking, oh, why are goods coming into the country? Guess what? For most things that are made, if you want to start molding plastics, the first thing you want to do is you're going to plug something into the wall, you're going to heat something up, it's going to melt the resins that are going to form the plastic. About 60 to 70% of the money you spend on the product is power. We pay here about 10 to 15 cents a kilowatt hour for electricity. If you use diesel generators, as most manufacturers are forced to do in Nigeria, they pay about 40 to 50 cents a kilowatt hour. 4 to 5 times what people in advanced countries pay. And you think you're going to manufacture products and compete with them? It's impossible. And even in places like China, it's even lower because they're using coal-fired plants. They're paying 4 to 5 cents a kilowatt hour. So their electricity costs are 10 times less than the competitor in Nigeria that's trying to compete against them. It's not possible. Without power, we're not going anywhere. So the second fundamental thing we have on our platform is power. We've determined that within 4 years, we can put up 17,000 megawatts. 17,000 megawatts, in addition to what we currently have, will give us about half the capacity that South Africa has relative on a per capita basis. We're not even aiming to be first. We're just aiming to be average. That's all. The next one is infrastructure. We need roads. We need railways. We need trains. We need functional airlines. We need inland waterways that will ensure that as goods are being farmed, they are getting to markets. That as crops and produce are being produced, as exports and imports are moving, we need those interconnected ways. We need infrastructure. So the third aspect of it is infrastructure. And rolled into infrastructure is also housing. Today in Nigeria, there's a 17 million housing deficit. There are at least, in order to satisfy the issues that we have, there are about 17 million houses that need to be built. The government doesn't even need to build them. Nigeria is the only place. We're here, please. I want us to be honest with ourselves. If somebody told you that you must put cash down, every transaction in Nigeria is cash-based. People are asked to put down a year's rent or 2 years' rent. And they don't even have access to mortgages. Without mortgages, how many of us here would have homes?
No way.
Without the ability to pay for our car over 4 or 5 years, how many of us would have cars? And yet we expect a Nigerian to turn up and pay cash for a car. No access to credit facilities. What does it take to enable that? So that's the third aspect of the plan, is the infrastructure plan. That we must have infrastructure in order for things to work. So that's SPI. We're now getting to the C. The C is corruption. We can have all these fancy plans, but at the end of the day, if you're allocating ₦1 billion to something, and 900 million of that billion is being stolen, then we're not going to get anywhere. The MC spoke today about something that's really important. If you look at the roads being built in Nigeria, they cost about 6 to 10 times the average cost of building roads, even in war-torn areas. In Afghanistan, if you look at how much it costs to build roads in places like Syria and Afghanistan, where they are undergoing war, it costs 6 to 10 times more to build those roads in Nigeria. How? Why?
Corruption.
It's corruption. So corruption is, we must take care of the issue of corruption. And if somebody can claim to know one or two things about corruption, I think it is the founder of this movement, Omoyele Sowore, because he has been keeping track of what those people have been doing for a very long time. In fact, there are many of us, those who didn't know him in school, actually got to find out about him because of some of the work he was doing on the ground. And tackling corruption is not just about having EFCC run after people. There are technological tools we can use. We can make bidding. We can make it transparent. We can use platforms, open platforms. The government can put out RFPs online. Every single company that's bidding should be known. The directors of all those companies should be known. The entire Corporate Affairs Commission database, including all their directors, should be online. I should be able to go to the list of government contracts. I should be able to click on the company. I should be able to know every single person that is linked to that company. And I should be able to go to the Corporate Affairs website and determine whether any of those persons has anything to do with anybody in government. That's technology. I should be able to put every single contract on a database and begin to compare how much it costs for me to build a road in Ajegule versus a road in Ikeja. And if there are discrepancies, we should start asking questions, why is it so different? So part of what we believe needs to happen is that we must also begin to engage technology. This idea that the person who is the EFCC chairman, so when Ribadu was there, it looked like something was going on. We shouldn't have a country where the effectiveness of institutions depends on who is leading that institution. We must have certain things that work no matter what. So technology is going to be one of the things we'll leverage for things like corruption. The next one is economy and jobs. We've said we want to create about 5 million jobs over 4 years. It's achievable. There are roads to be built. There are homes to be built. There are ranches for people to work on. We shouldn't have a country where 22 million cows are roaming the streets. That's what's leading to a lot of these crises. So if we're going to have ranches, if we're going to build roads, if we're going to have 17,000 new megawatts of power, that's jobs. And those jobs, we've looked at it, there should be about 5 million jobs that we can create very simply over that time frame. R is for restructuring. Nigeria needs to be restructured. It's simple. Nigeria used to work. There was a time when people couldn't wait to get back to Nigeria. My father studied here. When people ask me why my name is Malcolm, he actually named me Malcolm because he was part of Malcolm X's movement when he was here as a student. But they couldn't wait to go back to Nigeria. Why? Because Nigeria offered them a lot more. Once upon a time, we had regions that were competing against each other. Where, when one established a TV station, the next one did it within the next 6 months. It's a healthy competition. There's a constant competition going on here in the US. Every time on TV you see Minnesota asking everybody to move over from another state because they'll give them some tax benefits. Incentives. It's healthy competition. So we know Nigeria used to work. And we know that Nigeria worked best when the people that were leading those individual regions were accountable first of all, to their own people. So let's go back to a place where Nigeria works. There are conversations that need to be had, but restructuring must happen, period. How it's going to happen, what exactly it's going to look like, I think it's the Nigerian people that will have to determine that. The idea that we're going to sit back and the thieves in the Senate and the House of Reps will, how will you restructure benefits away from yourself? The way Nigeria is structured now favors them, and we will never get the restructuring we need if we rely on them. But restructuring is absolutely key. It's one of the fundamental cardinal plans that we have. So that's the R. And then the H is healthcare. Healthcare is critical. We have a country where even the president cannot afford to get treated in his own country. When I say afford, it's not the affordability of wealth. It is the quality of the healthcare. So if your president is afraid to even get treated in his own country, how much less everybody else? So, healthcare is absolutely important. We have said one of the first things we're going to do is 200,000. We would immediately employ 200,000 primary healthcare workers across the 774 local governments around the entire country. The quality of healthcare is going to be improved. We'll go into public-private partnerships that will bring healthcare centers. Nigerians are ready to pay for healthcare if they get access to it. So we're going to open it up, and people who have the ability to actually provide those services would be encouraged to come in. So that's healthcare. Then E is education. I started out by saying I went to public schools. Every single school I went to before leaving the country was a public school. And the public school education that I got qualified me to go study for a PhD in Cambridge. Public school education. Our public schools have they were some of the best schools I'd ever been to. Look at where we are now. The public schools are in a terrible state. I don't know when the last time was that any of you went back to the schools that you went to. But when I go back to the schools I went to, tears almost want to start dropping out of my eyes. When you look at what those schools used to be and what they are today. So we know that we can do better. We must educate our people. We must invest in education, because if we fail to educate our people, then we are banking on failure in the future. So that's the E. The A is agriculture. Agriculture is immensely important. As I speak to you today, the numbers tell us that about 60 to 70% of our people are involved in some kind of small-scale agriculture. But guess what the problem is? Do you think the small-scale farmer that has a small patch behind his house doesn't want to go mechanize? He wants to. But guess what? When you go and you say you want a tractor, they'll tell you to give them a landed property as collateral. Where is a small-scale farmer going to get landed property as collateral? Without landed property as collateral, nobody's going to give you a loan. If you don't get a loan, you can't improve. So you have a vicious cycle. So there are things we can do to boost agriculture. There are things we can do to enhance. So one of the first things we've said we'll do is that we will have 1,000 agripreneurs, agricultural entrepreneurs, in each of the 774 local government areas. That is almost 1 million people. There are 774,000, that's 774,000 jobs on day one. And all we're going to be saying is we want 1,000 people in every local government that are going to invest in agriculture. Guess what? The interesting thing in Nigeria is the government owns all the land. So unlike the US, where you have to start negotiating with individual landowners, the government actually owns every single piece of land in the country. It becomes easy to take that land, turn it into equity that can actually also fund those schemes. So when people ask us, where are you going to get the money is there. We just need to be innovative with the way we do it. So that's the A. The T is tourism. Look, Nigeria is blessed. The opportunities are immense. But we're taking tourism even one step further. that not only are we going to make Nigeria attractive, make the security situation enhanced. Today, Nigeria is a global powerhouse in movies. There's no one that doesn't watch Nollywood movies. Here in the US, I've run into people all over the place that tell me about Nigerian movies that even I haven't watched. Across all of Africa, the most popular movies are the ones coming out of Nollywood. Right? Our music is taking over the world. Our music is taking over. Our young people have become confident in themselves. When we were growing up, everybody wanted to sound like Americans. Today, kids who grew up in America are singing in pidgin English. When I was growing up, when you played local music in dance halls, everybody left. Today, if there's a party going on and you start playing music that is not Nigerian, everybody leaves the stage for you. So something is changing. Culturally, something is changing. We have something that people want. So let's make our country attractive and let's sell it to them. And then the other aspect of what we're doing, since we're in Diaspora, there's a gentleman back there. Sorry, I'm putting you on the stage, Zach Clement. That brother is from Cuba. Please stand up, let them. Please stand up, please. What is your son's name? So here's the reality. Here's the fact. Nigeria is the most populous black nation in the world. Yes, I agree. And across the black diaspora, whether it is Cuba or Brazil or the US or the Caribbean, many of the people in the black diaspora come from Nigeria. So one of the things our government has determined, and you see this in our manifesto, is that if you, through DNA, can link yourself to Nigeria, we will make you an honorary citizen of that country. She looks like a Nigerian to me. Yes. She should go do some DNA testing. So those are our plans. So I know it's been a long answer to a very short question, but I thought it was important to give you some perspective on it's those three cardinal things that we started with. But these 10 agenda points is what those three cardinal principles are. This place is cool.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Is it low, very low? Can I put this one there? Sorry.
AAC.
Take it back.
I have two more questions.
Oh, okay.
My name is Larry. I'm in Europe. And I just want to say how happy I am that AAC is giving us a new voice to believe again in Nigeria. Now, we all know the brains behind AAC are not professional politicians. They are reasonable technocrats, and professionals. Now, what is the party doing? Or should I say, how strong is the party's vetting team to ensure that adequate vetting, is the order of the day when selecting candidates for the various offices in Nigeria? You and I are witnesses to how one individual can hijack a party and its manifesto and programs. All it takes is to elect a wrong senator, two wrong senators, and one governor in Nigeria to destroy the party. How strong is the vetting process of AAC to ensure that professional politicians don't hijack the structure of the party and the success that the party is going to deliver to, because it's no longer whether AAC is going to succeed. The question is, what are we going to do to manage success when it comes? Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. It's a very important question, and it is a question that we have also asked ourselves a lot. So there are a couple of ideas and a couple of things that we're doing. So the first one is that before the list of candidates even gets to INEC, we are going to provide an opportunity for members to view those lists and engage with those lists and let us know if they have issues with the individuals. So this week, we finished all the congresses. On October 7th is the final date in the INEC timetable that party primaries, and that's why we're having our final national convention on the 6th. On the 7th, all the primaries are supposed to be done, and we'll have all the candidates. Between the 7th and the middle of November is when we have to actually submit those lists as a party to INEC. So after the last Congress or convention, we will have a full list of every single person that is a candidate on the platform of the party. Those names are going to be posted to all of our platforms so that the people who know people the most are the people in the place that you come from. So that will give us an opportunity to also find out if there are problematic people on our list that we have to begin to think about. That's number one. That's trying to catch it before it happens. But then, what if they get in and then show their true colors? Because many of the people running on our platform have never run before. And guess what? Many of the people that are wrecking Nigeria today, we didn't think they would wreck Nigeria. There are some of them that left from Diaspora and seemed to be level-headed before they left. And that's why the movement is not going anywhere. So there are some of us that will stay with the movement. Those who want to be in the party can go to the party. But guess what? The same way that we are chasing Buhari down, if any member of AAC messes up, we will lead a recall movement against them. That is what we have determined that we're going to do as a movement. Before you spoil our name, we will take you back. We'll take you out. Thank you. So that's it. And what we've demonstrated a capacity for, I think when we win the presidency, I think we would have demonstrated to all Nigerians that we can recall a senator if we want to, that we can recall a governor if we want to, that we can recall a member of the House of Reps if we want to, or recall a member of the State House of Assembly. So the reason why the movement will stay, because there are people who say, oh, now you have the party. Do you still need, TIB isn't going anywhere. It is the movement. That's the movement. We are not going anywhere. So those who have a passion for actually serving in government, please go serve. But the rest of us are going to be watching like hawks, and if we see you behave in the way that others behaved, then there will be hell to pay. The other aspect of it is that what we have noticed when we studied the situation, we found that, you can't give what you don't have. And that many of these people who are misbehaving, honestly, there are zero ideas up there, period. We also have a problem in Nigeria. The problem we have in Nigeria is we always think that all the ideas should come from government. Look, in this country, anytime there are elections, what is the one thing everybody keeps hearing? Lobbyists. Do you know what a lobbyist is? A lobbyist is just somebody who writes policy and is looking for opportunities to have those policies adopted by governments. It is not all lobbying that is bad. There are people lobbying for healthcare companies to ensure that there is healthcare access for the poor. There are also lobbyists that are lobbying for pharmaceutical companies to make sure they can make more money. There is one type of lobbyist that I would like to associate with who is trying to open up access to everyone. And I would argue that maybe the pharmaceutical companies have made enough money and they don't need all that lobbying. The problem we make in the country is when you ask people where are the worst Nigerians, they'll tell you they are in Abuja. Yet, we want those worst Nigerians to be the ones coming up with policies for healthcare, for expanding the power sector, for growing infrastructure. Many of them don't have the capacity to do that. So one of the things we did, before we ever announced there was a movement, you know the first thing we did? We produced a 50-page document, which is our manifesto. That came first. Because you need to know what you want to do. So there's nobody running on the platform of this party that will pretend they don't know about Spicer Heat. They know those plans. The other thing that we're doing is ensuring that the technical capacity, that it doesn't matter what state you represent. So whether it's Zamfara State that we win in, or whether it's Lagos State, you will have access to the same world-class resources. If you have all the people you need in Lagos, great for you. If you come from a state where you lack for capacity, then what will happen is the movement and the party will step in with technocrats drawn from across the diaspora and from back in Nigeria to ensure that you can have any excuse under the world. But the one excuse you cannot have is that you didn't have the technical capacity to actually address the problems that you have in your own particular area. So they will have access to analysts, they will have access to audit, they will have access to every single thing that they need. And that's why one of the things that we're doing is actually the next phase of what we're going to be doing is we're going to be opening a technocrats database where we're going to be collecting the names of Nigerians from around the world that have the capacity to help out in different areas so that when the time comes, for that help, where people actually need that support in order to be able to deliver on their promises, that we know and we have a base that we can reach into and use to provide that support. So those are the thoughts and ideas that we have about dealing with that problem right now.
Thank you very much. We have 2 more questions.
AAC.
Take it back.
Take it back.
Action.
My name is Olubukola Fakiye from Maryland. My questions goes like this. Because I have the strong belief that Omoyele Sowore is going to win the presidential election. So my own question goes like this. How is our party, AAC, working towards, in order not to manipulate the election in the future? Are we working towards it? Because look at what happened in Osun State. Yes. I've never had that kind of thing in my life. So I don't know if there is a way AAC is working towards that in order not to happen in the future.
That's a tough one. But here's the interesting thing. In 2015, for the first time in the history of our country, an opposition party won a presidential election. And there were many things that went into that victory. And I'll describe maybe a few of them. So here's the thing. What happened in Osun, and even before Osun, Ekiti, before that, are things that are not new. They've been doing all those things for a very long time. But I'll take you to 2015, and I'll talk about 2 things that happened in 2015 that actually helped the Buhari that's there now to win. So the first thing that happened in 2015 was INEC used card readers. So if we take one step back, Mr. Ogunleye said one thing which is extremely important. And what he said was that we plan to have people in every ward and in every polling unit. Here's the reality. If you don't have a polling agent in a polling unit, you have likely lost the election in that polling unit. That's number one, and I'll tell you why that's the case. But the second thing that's important is, So let's look at the anatomy of a victory in 2015. 2015, two things happened. Number one, they used the card reader. So what does that mean? The card reader means right now we have almost 80 million registered voters in Nigeria, right? So you go to a polling booth and they tell you there are 2,000 registered voters in that place. INEC will give 2,000 ballot papers to their officials. In the past, if only 200 people turned up to vote, the remaining 1,800 that didn't come, guess what happens? Between the polling unit and the collation center, 2 or 3 people sitting in the back of a car will begin thumb printing, okay? They will thumb print as many as they can between the collation center and the ward that they are coming from. If it's 1,000, then it's 1,000. By the time you get to the collation center, 1,200 votes has become 1,200. What the card readers did was that the card readers put an upper bound on the number of votes that could come from a particular unit. So if INEC said we're sending 2,000 cards, the first thing that would happen is, if you voted in Nigeria, for the first half of the day, you are doing verification. And verification sets the high bound. So verification tells you we have only 300 voters here, right? That's the upper bound. So even if you are rigging, the rigging has to happen within that 300. The second thing is for the rigging to happen. So I'm just describing what needs. So one, we must insist as a party that any attempt to eliminate technological tools in the 2019 elections under the guise that it is inconvenient, it must not happen. Number two, part of what happened last time is in every single polling unit, once the vote is done, even if it is only 50 people that voted there, the votes are counted and then they are pasted. What happens most times is when you look at the votes that were pasted and then you look at the votes that were announced, they are oftentimes different. So part of what we need to do, which was done last time, is that our people that are in every polling unit, as soon as the votes are counted, they will take pictures of the list. We have developed an app. We're revealing our strategy now. We are not scared to do it. We have developed an app and we're working on extensions of that app where every single member that we have can download it to their phones, and as they take those pictures, those things are going straight to getting collated. So that while, and that's where technology becomes important, so that while they are counting their votes, we also have our own counts. It's not new. That's part of what Sahara Reporters actually did in 2015. So we happen to have a founder and now, the presidential candidate of our party. He will be, by the grace of God and the Nigerian people next week, end up being the candidate of our party. This is something that he has pioneered. It's not new to us. So we know how they rig. In fact, if you notice, last week, INEC flew a kite, and they said they would not allow photographic materials within polling booths. It's not going to happen. We are going to fight them. If it means we're going to take them to court, we're going to do it. But we will not allow them to put us in a situation where we cannot take every single thing we can use to pull evidence together to ensure that nobody steals a vote from us. So that's what we're working on.
Thank you.
Take it back. Action. AAC.
Take it back.
My name is Omoyele Sowore. I live in Maryland. And the question I really want to ask is about those voting. I know we've spoken about those people in the diaspora who influence people back home. Now, my concern is about the majority of the people who don't have people in the diaspora, who have their PVCs and who are going to vote. Now, those majority of people, they are the ones who these politicians back home really do the see and buy with.
Yes.
Now my question is, how is the party ready to educate those people, maybe change their mind? Because those people really, I was back home just last month.
Yes.
They don't know more than just give me money, let me vote for you. Now that's a very major challenge that I'm wondering, how is it that we're going to convince these people to be able to buy into the ideology of AAC?
Okay, so that's a very important question. And what I'm happy about is the questions that we have are practical questions about how do we plan to win in an environment where we know exactly what the people who win do. So here are some of the things that we have to do. It's going to have to take, so while we are convincing people to vote for us because of the plans we have for them, there are also certain things we have to inform and educate people about. That's part of why we need some of your resources. So for example, we know that jingles, TV ads, any platform we can use to educate people, and these are the educational things we need to do. Number one, when a politician gives you 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000, whose money is it? Who owns that money? It's your own money. It's your money. So, if we can't stop people that can't afford to put food on the table for their children from taking 5,000 naira, we at least can inform them that taking 5,000 naira that is your own money should not obligate you to vote for the thief who gave you that money. Will we stop people from giving money? The answer is no. But can we change the mindset of the people who receive that money so that when you've wasted your money and you find that it is no longer effective as a tool for influencing people, you will stop doing it? So one is education. Education, so one aspect of education is don't take the money. Because when you take the money, that's why you don't have roads. Because when somebody has given you the 5,000, he expects you to share that over the 365 times 4 days that is in office. And the 1 naira per day that he gives you, just hold that tight anytime you see a bad road because you contributed to it. So we're going to educate people about that. Educate them not to do it. But then the reality is, a lot of people are still going to do it. So if they do it, we now have to educate them that even if you collect the money, and this is really interesting. Look, I ran for Senate in 2011. I lost. But I learned a lot of things in that loss. And here is what I learned. Our people are people of integrity. They'll tell you, if I collect the money, I no vote for them. You know good though. So the people that are collecting the money are dealing with integrity with the thieves that gave them the money. They believe that if they've taken something from you, they would actually be violating some unwritten contract not to do something for you in return. So that one aspect of education is that you don't owe them anything. It's yours, right? So one, educate them not to do it. Two, even if you collect it, you don't have to vote for them. And then the third aspect, which is the most important aspect for us, which is what we can control, is that we must also have a ground game. Look, WhatsApp is not where the election is going to happen. Facebook is not where the election is going to happen. All that stuff is fine and good. The bottom line is, do you have people on the ground? Do you have mobilizers? Do you have grassroots coordinators? Are you in every ward? Are you in every local government area? Are you in every state? Are you engaged with the people on the ground? That's how we're going to win. So those types of things, making sure we do them, making sure we have people, making sure we train them, making sure we find ways of engaging with them. Despite the fact that we don't have the resources these guys have, those are some of the things that we're going to do. Educating people to make them understand that there's a penalty and a price that they pay for all those 1,500, 5,000 naira they're collecting. That's why they keep suffering. We know it can be effective. Why do we know it can be effective? Guess what? Other nations, we're not the only nation that's gone through this. So in India, in places like India, they've actually had campaigns that were focused on just trying to help people understand that the reason why poverty keeps getting perpetuated is because you keep receiving these handouts where you mortgage your future with simple, idiotic benefits that don't take you beyond 1 or 2 days. And what we found is that those types of things actually work. It's going to take time. It's going to take effort. It's going to take a public awareness campaign. But I fundamentally believe that Nigerians will be responsive to that. Here's the final thing I'll tell you. In Ekiti, the Ekiti elections took place just a couple months ago, right? There are 900,000 registered voters in Ekiti. 700,000 of them collected their PVCs. If you've collected your PVC as of July, that tells me you are a motivated person politically. Guess what? Between the APC and the PDP, despite all the money they spent, between the two of them, they did not have more than 350,000 votes. It means that almost 350,000 people who collected their PVCs, and in spite of all the money that was flying around in Ekiti, decided that they were not going to be part of the political process. Did some of them collect money? I'm sure they did. Did they go out to vote? No. So what that tells me is the APC and the PDP lost. Who won? The people who sat at home. And the people who sat at home are not politically inactive because they had PVCs. So that gives me a lot of encouragement. It gives me hope. It tells me that Nigerians are tired of those antics. That if we engage correctly, if we educate correctly, if we do the right things, that there is going to be an opportunity. How we do it is still what we're trying to figure out. So that's where we need everybody's help. That's where we need ideas. How do we do it? How do we practicalize it? We know it can work, but how is it going to work? Those are some of the things that we still need a lot of help being able to do. Thank you very much.
Wow, that was quite some question and answer session. Can you please take your seat? We have our presidential candidate around, and it's going to come in any moment from now.
Just question, who's in charge of the AC is too cold.
Okay, we will get someone to...
If you believe in Sowore, if you believe in Nigeria, if you believe in Sowore, if you believe in Nigeria, if you believe in your future, if you believe in Nigeria, if you believe in your future, if you believe in your children, if you believe in Sowore, if you believe in Sowore, if you believe in Nigeria, take it back up, take it back up, take it back up.
So, please have a seat. Ladies and gentlemen, to officially present to you the incoming, agile, intelligent, competent, the next President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria.
Take it!
In private, I have asked him the secret to his tummy. For years, I've been secretly praying that he can join me in the pregnancy club. He refused. So, the next thing on our agenda, you know, like I said, we are going to follow what we set forward. But we deviated a little bit. We deviated for a good reason. All the questions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 questions, do we agree they were important questions? Did we all gain something from those questions? Oh, yes. Did Dr. Fabiyi do justice to those questions? Yes. So, the 45 minutes extra that we took, do we agree that it was well spent?
Yes, I'm well spent.
There is a young man here. He's actually going to take my cap if I don't do what I'm supposed to do. He has a presentation for us. This guy is a researcher. He's a writer. I have 2 publications from him. One is titled Anthropological Medicine, the Ontogeny and Phylogeny of Man. You know, I don't go to school. His second publication was Comparative Anatomy of the Cardiovascular System, a case study between 2 mammals, hedgehog and pangolin. Ask me what pangolin is, I don't know. Hedgehog, I know. But he's going to talk to us today not about medicine, not about hedgehog, not about, what did I call that one? Pangolin. He's going to talk about Nigeria. We want to take it back. There is the fundamental error in that country. For example, when I was talking, I said 200 million people in Nigeria. When Dr. Fabi was talking, he said 180. Do we know exactly how many there are? When our leader don't even know their own age, how can we know how many they are? One leader told us that there was no calendar at the time he was born. He might be 95 as far as he's concerned, but he just gets. We don't know. We build roads. We don't know how many vehicles ply the road in a year. When do we know when to carry out maintenance? That is part of what this young man is making his presentation on. He called it the panacea for Africa's pain, that is Africa's misfortune. He's the prince. His name is Prince David said, Oluwamayowa Arugbajoye.
Take it! Take it! AAC! Take it back! AAC! Take it back! Take it back! Take it back! Action!
Thank you, everybody. I can shout because I'm also in this evolution, like everybody else. Take it back! Action! No. Obviously, we're not taking it back yet.
Take it back, take it back.
Take it back! Action! AAC! Take it back! AAC! Take it back! Thank you, everybody. All protocols duly observed, standing on the existing protocol. I greet everybody here present. Thank you so much.
I bought this, no chat.
We have a problem in Nigeria, right? We have problems. We have very major problems. But we have solutions. I love the question that came up the other time when somebody asked us, what is our ideology? What do we believe in this movement, in this revolution? What do we believe in? I am a Pan-Africanist. I love Africa. And I love everything that has to do with Africa. Which implies that when I was seeing this movie Wakanda, I was like, oh, that's my dream. That's where I was heading to. And that's where I'm still going. And that is what is bringing about the question I ask myself every day about Africa. The continent of Africa, a continent that has everything, yet we don't have anything. And among the 54 countries in Africa, Nigeria is a country that has everything, yet the citizens don't have anything. That's why we are here today. That's why every individual in this room is here seated to find a lasting solution to African problems. That's why I'm here. I know if you calculate the miles I have to travel all the way to New York. I came from Georgia. I arrived this morning. And we are still going to Nigeria. I respect everybody that is in this revolution, and I'm glad that I'm alive today in this revolution. We are fighting. The fight continues until we take our country back from these monsters. And we'll go further to take our continent back from the same monsters. And the monsters we fight against is not just the monsters in our individual countries. We fight against the coalition, the agglomeration of monsters, both within the continent of Africa and without the continent of Africa. If we go into the story of the forces without, who sponsor the forces within, it's SAC. So we need to take the continent back. And one of the things we are going to do is to talk about the solution-driven future of Africa. That's why we are here. That's exactly what eventually we want to achieve after taking the leadership back from these people. And that also brought about my own research, the panacea for Africa's pain. Panacea is not a big word. It simply means the universal cure, the master cure, the master solution for the pains of Africa, for the misfortune, the problems that we find ourselves in. Everything I'm going to be talking about today is just a summary of the exact content of this topic. The other time, I love the fact that somebody was talking about electricity. And part of the Spicer is, manifesto, the content of the list. It's so sad. Do you know, or does anybody here know, that America actually generates more than 4,000 terawatts per hour of electricity? Do we know that? I'm not talking about megawatts, I'm talking about terawatts. Pico, nano, micro, milli, centi, kilo, mega, giga, tera. I'm talking about terawatts. It's so sad. It's Sir. Okay, look at this. I'm going to give you this to make it simpler for us. In 2016, the power generated from wind in the US was 81.3 gigawatts from wind. Gigawatts from wind. Nigerian government is struggling with 12,000. It's a vision. They have a vision of having 12,000 megawatts. It's a vision, a 2015 vision. Okay, so let's make it easy. Let's make it easy. Okay? There are some imminent questions we need to ask ourselves. And the question is, you have a very beautiful cloth, okay? You plan to make a great design with it. Before your tailor collects the cloth from you and starts cutting to make you that beautiful design, what is the first thing your tailor will do? Measurement. That's the unanimous answer. Measurement. It's funny. When we are trying to build a nation, we are trying to build a country, we are trying to develop a nation, but we cannot even give account of those who make up that nation.
Evil spirits.
So what are we doing? I love all the manifestos. I love our manifestos. Because see, this ideology is a useful ideology, and I love that ideology. But ask yourself, after all of these beautiful manifestos, what happens to the people themselves? How do we make these things happen when we do not actually know who these people are? They make budget every year. All those annual budgets they make. What happens to that? Who do they make this budget for?
Monkeys and snakes.
But guess what? We don't want to make that same mistake again. Even after the election must have been won by the youth, we need to be careful not to make that same mistake again. And that is why it is very, very imperative to make the first step in nation building by identifying every individual that makes up that nation. That is the first step. I've argued about this several times. I've argued with the convener of this movement. I've argued in so many platforms. I've argued several times. And I'm still arguing. The other time, the DG mentioned something about lobbyists. There are good lobbyists, there are bad lobbyists. I am a lobbyist in this movement. And what I'm lobbying for is the identification of every individual that makes up Nigeria. That is what I'm lobbying for. That is what I keep pushing. That is the only gospel I preach. Anywhere I go. Because if we do not know ourselves, then what is it we are doing? All of us here, either you're a resident, or you're a visitor, or you're a citizen. Whoever you are, the reason you have those classes of your identity is because there's an identity system, identification system in this country. Those of us that are here today, there's an account of us that we traveled from wherever we came from to this city of New York. There's an account of us. Either you traveled by bus, you bought your bus ticket from one company. There's an account of you. You used your debit card, your credit card to buy a bus ticket. if they trace any information about you today, if anything happens today, they will trace you back all the way to the origin, where you traveled from, until you got to this place. Those who drove their vehicles, you bought gas somewhere. You paid toll. I think there's an account. I think there's an account of you. Now, go through that same evolution in Nigeria as a country. When you travel from Lagos to Ibadan, is there any account of you?
No.
That is where we are going. That is what nation building is about. The underrated answer, the unknown, we seem to know. All these questions led us to a breakthrough answer, which seems as the origin of what becomes our topic of discussion today. You know what my answer is to all of our questions of African problems? We have a system and we have a structure. We have a function and we have a structure. The existential nature of mankind is either structural or functional. Your body, the structures you see, they have functions. Every structure of your body has a function. So, same thing applicable to national development, same thing applicable to nation building. From inception, since time immemorial, Nigeria has been built based on structure. And so also applicable to every country in Africa. Less than 2% of African nations actually have what we call a centralized national database system. Less than 2%. That is why it is easy for China to dash everybody money. And even if they dash you free money, there should be something you are using that money for. Even if they at least dash you free money. Even if somebody is coming to buy your land, there should be something you are using that money for. That is the reason there is this free in and out of African nations from the West, from the Middle East, from Asia, because there is no systemic functionality. And that functionality of the system begins with identification of every individual that makes up the country. That is where nation building begins from. I have a postulation. Without the knowledge and understanding of function, structure can neither be made nor sustained. I don't know how many people agree with me on that. If you don't have an understanding of the function of a thing, how can you make the structure? How can you sustain the structure? If you don't know what the function is for, you want to build a house, you don't have a reason, you don't know how many rooms you want to have in your house, as in what the purposes of those rooms are. You don't know all of that, but you want to build this beautiful house. How can you actually design the house to suit your desire? It's sad. I don't want to waste our time for too long. I'm just going to brush through some things so that we can move on. Now, two dimensions of nation building. The function, which represents the system, and the structure, which represents everything built in a nation, such as infrastructure and amenities. Anything you can think of that is built in a nation is the structure. But when it comes to functionality of that nation, is the system. Does Nigeria have a system? And if we have a system, does the system function? And why is our system not functioning? The pathway to nation's greatness. A nation building, infrastructure cannot be built, continuously managed, or sustainably maintained without creating a sustainable, functional, and working system for it. Likewise, no nation can be developed without creating a functional system. The functionality of a system not only sustains a nation, but also sustains its people, enhances the innovative developmental perspective of leaders. When you have a functional system, the leaders can innovate, they can think, they can be creative. You don't just give this Tea Party money to politicians and they just mess around with it, because there's no system that can actually question them. There's no system that can make them think of something. The other time, some Nigerians, they were saying some things on my platform, talking about, hey, our senators, what are they doing with that money? They're supposed to be, they don't. Each of them should come out and mention one project they have done in their constituency. And I got uncomfortable with that. Do you know why? You call them senators, you call them reps. Are they supposed to be digging borehole? It's not their job. It's not. And because we are so engrossed in that structural perspective of nation building, that is why we keep asking them. Any senator that does something, that does a capital project in his constituency is working. That is our ideology, that's our perspective. That's what we believe as Nigerians. That is why they keep going every year and year to build boreholes. That is why they paint the primary school that does not have chairs, that doesn't have teachers. Because we are so into the structure. We are not talking about the system. The functionality of a system puts everyone on an equal level playing ground. And this is the pathway to a nation's greatness. When everybody is on an equal level playing ground, it's a pathway. Because you can wake up in the morning and say, okay, this is my dream. I want to fulfill my dream. When Dr. Malcolm was talking the other time, he was like, part of our ideology is a Nigeria where a Nigerian can actually say, okay, I want to fulfill my dream. And that ideology requires a functionality in the system that will make a Nigerian wake up in the morning and will not need a collateral before going to the bank to say, I have an innovative idea. I need a loan. And they will give you that loan without collateral. Without saying, go get your father's house. If you have your father's house, and you know it's worth that amount of the business you want to do, and you are sure that that business will actually bring enough profit for you in 6 months to 1 year, why can't you even sell off that father's house and do your business? Why can't you make your father the manager of that, so that he can know that, okay, he has a franchise in this business because he is selling his house? It's a risk, but many Nigerians will take that risk. How many Nigerians actually, especially the youth, how many of them have their fathers own one structure? On the street of Lagos, do you know how many ideas die every day on the street of Lagos? Because there's a failed system. Okay. A nation, the government, and the citizens unknown. There's a nation, there's a government, but we don't know who the citizens are. How many people here are Nigerians? If you are a Nigerian, just raise your hand. What makes you a Nigerian? I want to know, what makes you a Nigerian? Your international passport? Your birth record? Who told you your certificate is original? Who told you? Okay, now let me tell you the difference between you, a Nigerian in diaspora, and Nigerians back home. The difference is this. Someone from Niger who speaks the Fulani language can gallantly walk through the border and go buy or go obtain a birth certificate with 500 naira. And go all the way to immigration office. The same passport you think makes you a Nigerian. He will get that passport. The same process we are going through. And he will get that passport. And what happens? He becomes a Nigerian. He has what you have. He has the birth certificate. So are you a Nigerian?
Just 10 years ago, here in America, you can go and buy basketball for 7 streets.
Yeah, it's possible. Yes, it's possible. But I will tell you something. Social Security number in America began in 1936. That's when they started the economic revolution of America. Forget about all those histories of world wars, economic revolution, and all those stuff. The day they got actually Social Security number was not intended for what it is used for today. It was supposed to cover up the lapses of those who go to war. They come back. They should have something as a form of welfare that they come home to meet. So they give them some type of specialized identification number to make them, so that they can be able to give them funds to live after the war, especially the wounded soldiers. That's how they started this entire Social Security revolution until it became a national virtue, which today they are building on. There's nothing you want to do in America today that you will not need a Social Security number. Quote me.
To be a citizen.
Quote me. And that forms the basis of their identification. That separates the citizens from the residents and separates the residents from the visitors. To a point where you even know those who swim through the ocean across the border, who don't have any type of identification record. So now tell me, with what they have, with their national centralized database system, many of us wonder how they got to find out how many vehicles ply on each of their roads per hour. It is through a centralized national database. The DOT the Department of Transportation can actually, start digging through until they find that little fragment that makes them understand, okay, this is how many people fly through or fly through this road. on daily basis, so they can understand what is it they need to do if that road is congested, if they have to create alternative routes or alternative means of transportation, such as subway. This is the basis of national development. There has to be a centralized national database system in Nigeria if we want to do anything at all, if we want to start national development. I argue about this a lot, but many still don't get it. There's no government that can make any budget or developmental plans and policies without the in-depth of the knowledge of the people being governed. When you don't know the people you govern, how can you make policies? How can you actually make developmental plans? How can you make budgets? Having a clear and detailed account of the people and the corresponding units, such as the ministries, the departments, and the agencies, creates a great avenue for purposeful planning, purposeful developmental planning. It gives that nation a goal. It gives the nation a vision. Most countries in Africa, they don't have it. That is why they circumnavigate. Now, leadership is by generosity in Africa. Leadership is by being nice. If a leader has a good heart, if he's philanthropic in nature, it comes to the table with beautiful ideas. He does it and it goes away. The next person comes there. If it's all about looting, he's going to loot the hell out of that country. Everybody keeps complaining. They go back to square one until the next election. They circumnavigate. Because there's no system that works, that can put everybody on an equal level playing ground and balance up. Even no matter how visionless you are as a leader, you cannot go below the standard. You can only do whatever you want to do and you get out of bed. That's why many people don't worry today about Trump. Because no matter what he does, good or bad, he can't go below his standard. He cannot go below his standard. He can only either push the country forward or leave the standard the way it is. Until somebody with great vision comes there and tether the nation further than the way it is. But in Nigeria, it's not like that. It takes a generous governor in Lagos to actually beautify Lagos. Many of the things we see today in Lagos, because Lagos is like the example of our greatness in Nigeria. Many of the things we see today in Lagos, they are called beautification. Because you still cannot be in your house and just fill up a government form. You have to go to Alausa. Everything is rigorous. Because there is no system. And that leads to so many abandoned projects. Because there's no system that can make the next government continue from where the previous one stopped. Despite of what we saw Fashola did in his time, the beautification he did. Ambode came with his own perspective of beautification and abandoned many of the projects Fashola did. And despite the fact that they are in the same political party, that tells you that we manage Nigeria and the government through a structural perspective of national development. We need a systemic perspective of national development. And that is why every individual in that country must be identified. We need to create a biometric national database system that will help us to identify the individuals that make up the nation. So when we assign a biometric identification number for every individual in that country, then we can start moving forward from there. So when we assign that biometric, some people argue that we already have database in fragments, in patches. Some people argue that we have phone numbers. Some people argue that we have international passports. Some people argue that we have NIMSI, the national ID card. Some people argue that we have BVN. Now tell me, if MTN passes law today and says, you know what, Nigerians, I'm done with you, I'm not doing business with you no more, and they go back to South Africa, what happens to the phone numbers? They are gone. All Nigerian enemies can come and say, hey guys, we need you to sell us the data that you have about Africa, about Nigeria, from your telephony system. And the ISP that wins, they give the money to MTN. MTN say, okay, thank you.
They sell them now.
This is it. So are we going to base our national development on a private or a foreign company? We are talking about national centralized database system that we must have, so that we can actually talk about the serious business of national development. In 2018, 3 months ago, now it's 3 months, WHO was so worried. UNICEF. They were so worried, they came up with something. They said, out of 5 million childbirth in Nigeria, 5 million childbirth in Nigeria, only less than 30% of them are actually recorded. So we have less than 30% childbirth record in Nigeria. And we say we have data. How will BVN account for childbirth? How will international passports account for childbirth? How will national ID card account for childbirth? Less than 30% of children born in Nigeria are being accounted for. 5 million is the population of Libya, roughly. So which means less than 30% of Libyan population is being accounted for as a nation. And we want to develop Nigeria. How? How do you plan your budget for those 5 million children when you don't even know who these children are? It's ridiculous. How do you account for the demographic setting of Ebonyi State? How do you know how many females are in Ebonyi State? How do you know how many males are in Ebonyi State? How do you know those who actually go to school? How do you know those who are out of school? How do you know those things? Let's stop this guesstimate. Let's stop guesstimate. Let's talk about factual numbers. This is my argument. That we need to create a biometric identification number for every individual in that country for the serious perspective of national development. We need to do that. We need to put all these things together and make up a national central database system for our people. Then we can start the business of. You can talk about any of the things we have in our agenda. Let's say electricity, for example. More than 1,800 companies are in the US, and more than 80% of the electrical generation companies in the US actually are private companies. They are private companies. How do you put all of those people in a database? We need to put them in a database. We need to break down electricity and say, okay, electricity, when you identify everybody, put every company in a centralized database system. From there, you can begin to talk about, okay, we need more investors in the area of electricity. Electricity can actually be built individually in each of those states on a central national database system. So that everybody, see, a conductor that does not pay tax, because he's not even part of Nigeria. Do you know who pays tax in Nigeria? Civil servants. Because their data can be captured. How do you tell a meat seller to pay tax? A pepper seller that is not on database. You build hospitals, ghost workers are filled in it. There's no database. This is a serious thing, and it requires the government of the day to take it seriously. And it is part of the vision that we have towards building a nation that works. There's a lot involved in database system. But I would say this, because there's not enough time to talk about anything. We're not talking about education, we're not talking about healthcare. Our database can help healthcare. Our database can cause a revolution in our education. We're not talking about our database can cause a revolution even in our own power sector. We're not talking about natural resources. Our database can cause revolution in every of those units. How we can centralize database system in ministries, in departments, and in our agencies. There are 540 agencies in Nigeria, government agencies. They are not insane. Police does not know anything about immigration. Immigration does not know anything about police.
Drop the mic.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And my closing remark is the content that I just shared with you is a form of reiteration that the only proven and working solution to a crucial situation as we have in Nigeria today is to create a functional and working system for our dear nation through a national central database system. Nigeria needs to have a system, and not just a mere system, but a functional and working system, which cannot be created but by a national database system. For there to be a nation that works, there must be a system that functions. This is something I wake up with. This is something I sing about. You cannot have a system, you cannot have a nation that works without a system that functions. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, sir. Prince Arubajo.
You want me to get you one?
AAC. 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 Take it back. Action. Take it back. Action. You know me, when I did school, I don't like comprehension. I like summary. So all the big grammar, when I start to talk, the long and short of it we say, for Nigeria presently, if you keep person for Ibadan, you feel go Fiditi, go the live, nothing they happen. No record.
You stay for Ibadan there, sir.
Huh?
You stay in Ibadan.
Inside Ibadan, because you don't get address. No database. Up till 2 months ago.
I like that grammar.
Up till 2 months ago, I was a law enforcement officer. I was a senior parole and probation agent for the state of Maryland for special offenders. Like the guy was giving us statistics. The state of Maryland started having the rap sheet system where you record offenses in 1978. Just 1978 though. We can do it now, can't we? But you know our problem? Willpower. Who will build the cat? So that is the summary of all what that my researcher brother they talk. You know me, I know here cry. But the way Asabi nah talk. He talk one thing where I cry. He said, you pay toll gate? I can't check, did I pay toll gate? Now true. He said, did you buy gas? I look sunny. I said, we buy gas, so not true. We even stop for, wait a minute, after doing stuff. We stop for Burger King, our night for dinner. But Nigeria, you go walk out, let me tell you one small experience before I begin move on. And they go, it can go from Ibadan. Person look me like this. I don't resemble politician. See Belena. I don't resemble politician. The only problem is that I don't sit down for back. I dey for front with my nephew when they drive me. We reach there. Mopo stop us. I look Mopo. My wife go back. My wife say, oh, this is good. These are the right CTU for the counter-terrorism unit. Oh. I say, what? I don't go resemble Boko Haram. He said, stop! I tell her, okay, pack form. Pack. Give me the paper. The first day where I land for Nigeria, the first day where I asked to say, where the paper of this motor where we go to drive? He showed me. I look everything from head to toe. Tinted permit, he go, he say, he complete. Oh yeah, I enter motor. I don't want bad person. My paper complete. He stop us, I did it. I no talk. I said, I see they talking on with that. No, maybe they talk, now maybe they drive. I look one side, I begin to do my thing. I be ready. Now the thing wey person be that. He say, hey, they talk, me, I dey smoke. You know they talk to me, no be me they drive. What it concern me and you? If I talk now, he go say, again, you know, wahala. He look paper. He say, this your tinted permit. Na fake. My wife, na prison she dey work. She said down the. She said, na fake. How do you know fake? The guy said, okay, what is the color of this vehicle? Na black. Which color they write for tinted permit? They write custom as made. Don't say na color where they write so. He said you have to call the person that did this tinted permit 5:30 in the evening on a Saturday. I looked that boy, I said, Nigeria they go, na house they go. I know they all. I mean, put music, I did there. I was there because I was not ready to give anybody CC. No record. Now, bringing it back to what he was saying, assuming the color of the car was wrong, an American policeman will stop you, plug in your tag, and verify if there is any problem. He will waste your time, maximum 10 minutes. And he will come with an apology. I'm sorry, sir, for wasting your time. You can go. My brother did. Even if you be governor, now here we go there. I say I don't want to be governor, sir, but now here we go there. I go carry out. I say I don't be governor, but now here I go still there. That is one of the problems of the database, the way they talk. We need to thank you, Gary. May they don't come out to thank you for my hand for village. So, that is the long and short. That is part of what this our incoming administration will look at. Dr. Malcolm mentioned something that time. He said, we will create a small database of technocrats. When some people hear technocrats, you're going to think the only person will get PhD be technocrat. No. Nurse, we don't be LPN. We be RN. We can get 10 years experience. What do you mean? Now, nursing crat. It's a nursing crat. Correctional officer. We join as a recruit. You become the correctional officer CO1, CO2, CO3, we be sergeant. You can't be lieutenant. What do you mean? The correction craft. So we will check out all that. Look at, let me give you another example. I won't waste your time. Just 2 minutes, I'll give the microphone. I worked for parole and probation for years. I was in a unit called the Comet, a specialized team. Nigeria made a law 4 years ago, shortly before Jonathan left. They call it the Sex Offender Registry Act. It was sponsored by a female senator, something, anyhow. I was interested because that was my field. I read that law from beginning to the end. It was copied and pasted as copied. No single word was changed. Now, there was the word parole and probation. Sex offender on parole, sex offender on probation, blah, blah, blah. I asked my wife, I said, where is the division of parole and probation in Nigeria? So they should have first enacted an act that established the division of parole and probation before enacting the act. Or create that division in the same act. Those are the kind of mistakes they make, that this administration, which is coming next year, the administration of Sowore, these are the things we will put in place. Thank you very much. AAC, take it back! Take it back! Action! I will call on the state coordinators now to come and give account of the activities of their state. What do you think?
Yes.
Do you think we should do that?
Yes, sir.
Do you think they should come and tell us what they've been doing?
Definitely.
Okay, I will start, not from you. I will call on you later. So, I will give you a whole 5 minutes. I will start with a man whose first name sounds like the name of the state. If I'm an American, I will call it Mr. Omoyele Sowore. But I will call him the way we call him for Nigeria, Mr. Omoyele Sowore.
Take it back! Take it back! Take it back! Chinatown.
Yes, this is from Chicago. Sorry, I was going to start with my speech, but I don't think there's anything to read when I'm talking to my people here. I greet you, I bring greetings from Chicago. Today in our midst we have Secretary General Moses Alade in our midst, and then I have my competent and able member, Prince Adenoga, with me. Sometimes in May we started this movement. We see a movement in Chicago. So that's what I'm not saying AAC for now until we inaugurate the party in Chicago. So some of us, like Dr. Malcolm said earlier, we're going to stick with some of us, I say, will be sticking with the movement, while some will migrate to the party. No, in Chicago, because we're going to have the party in Chicago. So, so far we've done the town hall meeting, which was highly successful in Chicago. And then come November 17, I would, for those of you who have friends, who have relatives in Chicago, we're having a fundraising dinner. You can obtain tickets maybe online or directly from us. You can reach out to me. I'll tell you how to get your tickets. But we all invited. I want money from everybody. And I'm sure, like every other coordinator, I'm sure the money is not meant for us. It's meant for the Sowore campaign organization. So I'm not here to bore you with any long speech or speeches. I'm just going to say to you that in Chicago, we've been working very, very hard. We have people, men and women, working to see the change we desire in Nigeria. A lot of us cannot go back to vote, but we, like I would say, some of us have, sorry, I'm not sure everybody could hear me. So, like I would say to you that every penny I send back to Nigeria now is tied to, there's a condition to it. My mom knows her money, from next month, she gets 50% of what she used to get until she shows me a BBC. And my family and friends are on hold, on pause for now. So the only possible excuse right now is my mom who's on 50%. TVC, you get your 50% in arrears or whatever is paid, I'll pay it back. And then, who else? Friends who I'm about to the ability to talk to, you're begging me for money every time. But every time I talk about Sowore, you're telling me, oh, who is he? I don't know him. Okay, your problem will stay with you until you listen to me when I talk. If I got to help you, you need to help yourself by getting your PVC. And I mean, it's not just giving you money. Most times, we know, everybody knows what Nigerian problems really are. I mean, that's the truth. We know, I mean, an average Nigerian will tell you what the problems are. But when it comes to solution, it says, giving excuses for the oppressors. So I'm going to start oppressing them too. For you to enjoy the kind of life you think you want to enjoy, or what I enjoy, you need to believe in what I believe in. So I'll leave you with this. If you have people back home, I don't care who they are, as long as they're not your kids, they're not your parents, they need to believe in what you believe in.
Oh yes.
They need to have their policies, they need to be ready to vote for your candidate. I'm not bribing anybody, but it is the only reason I work so hard. And I'm not going to give you my hard-earned money for things to remain the way they are. I don't want to be, I don't want to be anybody's ATM anymore. So for you to enjoy the benefit of me being in the United States, you need to work in that. So my name is Ohio Isaiah, and I think I've been able to, say one or two things about what we are doing in Chicago. Please join us as we are in November 17th. It's a Saturday. Mark it on your calendars. Tell your friends, tell your families to join us in Chicago. It's $100. So much fun. It's going to be a victory dance. Okay, I mean, I need to tell you, our dinner is different from our fundraising dinner. It's different from every other one because ours is actually a celebratory dance. The president, I will call it, is coming to Chicago to dance with us. We're going to dance. I mean, we just need to do some rehearsals, dance, show some dances before you be sworn in come 2019. So that's what we're doing in Chicago. It's actually a fun night with the president. So come and dance with us, come and eat with us. The food is free. I'm not charging you for food, but then it's $100 party. Thank you so much. And there's going to be a lot of drinks too, so thank you.
AAC.
Action.
AAC.
Take it back.
AAC.
Take it back.
Take it back.
Action.
Take it back.
Action.
Are you bored?
No.
Are you sleepy?
No.
Okay, now let's practice our church skills. Hello?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Action.
Okay. Face your neighbor and tell your neighbor Nigeria shall be great again.
Nigeria shall be great again.
Face your neighbor one more time and say to your neighbor that Nigeria will be great again. Say it like you believe it. Say it like you believe it. AC, AC, take it back. Action. I'm definitely going to be in Chicago. I forgot to tell us the kind of music they will. Indianapolis people, they showed us the kind of stuff they can do. They even got our president to dance. I saw some moves. So that was Chicago. And he has told us it's November 17th. And we can carpool if you're from Maryland, you want to go. We can drive, we can make it a road trip. We did it when we did it in 2015 for some people. We can always do it again for our own people.
Yes.
So the next person I'm going to call the state coordinator is my own
chapter from the DMV. The DMV is our local area, Maryland, Washington, D.C., and part of Virginia. And that would be Mr. Abiodun Lawal. A little plug here, but you will.
Official town crier.
AAC. Take it back. Take it back. Action. Yeah, my name is Abiodun Lawal, and I am one of the coordinators in DMV. So, as the MC said, DMV is Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia. I'm sorry I'm not a public speaker, so I'm not. So I'll quickly go over what we've been doing in DMV. We've been reaching out to Nigerians around the DMV through the phone and email, and also we've been doing a word of mouth. And I'll quickly go back to what Dr. Malcolm said earlier. He said that we should try to call people back home and to ask them to go out to vote for AAC. We've been doing that, and it is, from my own look of things, I think it is twice effective compared to other methods that we've been using. It is very, very, very effective. So I, we implore everybody to try to call back home and ask them to vote for AAC. So, and another thing we are in the process of doing, we want to organize a fundraising for AAC and take it back in a DMV. And I think some of us that came from DMV, please make sure you drop your number and email, because we will be reaching out to people in the DMV area. I don't want to take your time. So before I begin this stage, I want to do something kind of what the MC did before he left the stage. That I should our neighbor and said, man, Nigeria, I forgot what you said. But I will want everyone to look at your neighbor and tell them that Nigeria must flourish in our lifetime.
Amen. The whole new Nigeria was flourishing. Thank you. Give me a hand. AAC! Take it back! Take it back! Action!
It's my junior pastor now. I like the word he used, flourish. Yes. You know, I don't know if you can remember when you were kids. 1975, 76. There was this cow that was imported from Argentina. At the end, I said, I didn't unleash the Murtala imported those Kuru cows. They were small, fatty. When your mother cooks them, they will be floating like my boat. You can't remember. It's not that long. 75, 76. They will be flowing. You know? That was the good times. Somebody was talking about Malcolm. Said, is that school there? My brother's school there. I don't know when he can come back to Nigeria. The guy, he young wine. Because these people messed everything up. God will give you the resources, right? He will give you the people, right? He will give you the brain. It's up to you how you use it. So for the past 40, 50 years, they've been using it wrong place. If you give somebody key Make it start motor. It don't start motor, motor don't start. You know, when you start motor, you don't start. You still they start and they go. Motor go make I mean, you know what I'm talking about? We want to take our key back. I'm going to another state. That is Michigan. Michigan is a state. Yes. Sure. I'm in Nigeria now. They bomb me here. No people can come. Mr. Sunday Adebayo, Michigan chapter.
Take it
back.
Take it
back.
Take it
back.
Take it
back.
Thank you very much. All right, yes, sir. I need everybody to stand up like what Mr. Malcolm did, and we must raise our hand and take it back, please. AAC, take it back. AAC, take it back. Take it back. Action. Thank you very much. Action all the time. I stand on all existing protocol. I would like to start from, I'm reading a speech, so from Michigan. So good morning, take it backers all around the world. Good morning, AAC members all around the world. My name is Sunday Adebayo. I stand here to bring greetings from the state of Michigan. I am proud and honored to serve as the state coordinator. During the humble beginning of Take It Back, my state was third in line after Maryland to take it back. We dedicated ourselves to plan and build on the structure. This structure will help us elect our next president, Mr. Omoyele Sowore. A round of applause for him, please. In my state, we are educating, creating awareness, and raising funds, and building solid group to take it back, and support the mission and values of AAC. My state of Michigan and its constituents are dreamers who will carry on and claim victory in February 2019. Some say we are inconsequential, but I say we are of great significance because my generation is dedicated to hard work needed. We must continue to work and take action now. The reality is we have been lied to and ruled by arrogant power. We must unify our country and lead in education, economic growth, and sustainability. Provide a place for us to return home. We must not go on in its current form. We must reclaim our position as head of Africa. The strive is to make Nigeria #1 leader and hub in the world. We are in this movement to break the negative chain of our current climate. Demand a revolution for independence. We must change our measurement of leadership and power. This movement will disrupt the norm. We are all in this together, fighting for the right measurement and direction of leadership and power. I would like to thank the state of Michigan, thank the state of New York, thank you, United States of America, all members of AAC all around the world. And thank you, our great country, Nigeria. We must disrupt and create a transition to take it back. AAC, take it back. Take it back. Action. Mr.